This is Euronews Now. I'm Raul San. It's great to have you with us. Let's take a look at our top stories. UN Chief Antonio Gutierrez has landed in Moscow, where he's scheduled to meet President Vladimir Putin later today before heading to Kyiv for talks with Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. Meanwhile, Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov issues a warning to the West over supplying weapons to Ukraine. Don't underestimate the real danger of starting World War III. And can billionaire Elon Musk unlock the free speech potential of Twitter? The richest man on the planet reached a deal to buy the social media network for more than 40 billion euros.
Ukraine's foreign minister is calling on the United Nations to broker a deal with Russia to evacuate Mariupol residents. But he also warns the UN Secretary General not to fall into what he calls the Kremlin's diplomatic trap. Antonio Gutierrez is scheduled to visit both Russia and Ukraine this week, and his decision to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin before visiting Kyiv has not pleased Ukraine.
It has been a long diplomatic tradition that one has to visit Kyiv before going to Moscow. But this is not kind of a huge disappointment that we cannot live with. First, it's a trap for him, diplomatic trap. Second, they may be ready to discuss something with him. And our request to him is instead of focusing on broad issues like full and comprehensive ceasefire, which is important, but we see what Russia does on the battleground, it's simply not feasible, he should focus primarily on one issue, evacuation of Mariupol.
Russia claimed on Monday that it reached an agreement with Kyiv to open humanitarian corridors in Mariupol so it can evacuate the Azovstal plant. But Ukraine has denied that an agreement was reached and has since denounced airstrikes on the steel plant, where both fighters and civilians are sheltering. The port city has been under siege since the start of Russia's invasion.
The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Gutierrez is today meeting Vladimir Putin in Moscow. Mr. Gutierrez's associate spokesman said that the goal is to discuss what could be done urgently to bring peace to Ukraine. Some analysts say that Mr. Gutierrez could bring up the question of the role of the UN in the peace talks, as well as pressing for humanitarian access and urgent aid to evacuate civilians from Mariupol. The Kremlin has not provided any details of the upcoming talks, but there was a short statement from the Russian Foreign Ministry as Mr. Gutierrez will also meet with Sergei Lavrov today. The statement says, quote, the focus will be on the crisis situation in Ukraine, which has developed as a result of the 8-year conflict unleashed by Kyiv against the population of Donbass. Many analysts believe that the talks in Moscow are going to be quite difficult and say that there is little hope for any breakthrough. On Thursday, Antonio Gutierrez will also meet with the president of Ukraine in Kyiv. Volodymyr Zelenskyy has criticized his decision to visit Moscow first, saying that it was simply wrong. Galina Polonskaya, Euronews from Paris.
A stark warning from Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. There is a real danger of a third world war. In an interview on Russian state television, Lavrov said peace talks between Moscow and Kyiv will continue, but he accused Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy of only pretending to negotiate.
Many of us are convinced that Ukraine's real position is determined in Washington, London, and other Western capitals. And therefore, our political analysts say, why talk with President Volodymyr Zelenskyy's team? We need to talk with the Americans, negotiate with them, reach some kind of agreement. We still continue to negotiate with the team that Zelenskyy put forward. These contacts will continue, but as for the Americans, it would be probably useful. But any manifestations of interest on their part regarding contacts on Ukraine or other issues, we do not observe.
Kyiv, for its part, says Moscow chose war instead of talks when it hit several cities with missiles over the weekend. President Zelenskyy said Russia would not be able to win the war against his country and called on residents to do everything to make the presence of Russian troops in Ukraine unbearable.
Everyone in the world, even those who openly did not support us, now agree that it is in Ukraine that the fate of Europe, the fate of global security and the fate of the democratic system is decided.
As the war escalates in the east, Russia appears focused on destroying Ukrainian infrastructure and disrupting military supply routes from foreign countries.
The Russians are somehow chaotically shelling the whole village. We do not see the logic of these bombings. One time they fire on the railway, another time they fire on some industrial facilities, next day on residential areas.
Об'єктах, то вони обстрілюють по житлових масивах, просто от.
On Monday, the Russian military admitted having destroyed 6 facilities powering railways in several regions using precise guided weapons. Ukraine had accused Russia of striking multiple railway stations in the center and west of the country, killing at least 5 people.
As the information war between Kyiv and Moscow continues, a video appearing to show Russian President Vladimir Putin at an Easter church service over the weekend has been called into question, with much online speculation that the images were faked. Matthew, in our social media news desk, The Cube, has been taking a look at the claims.
As the war continues in Ukraine, the online misinformation that we're seeing seems now to focus more and more on the leaders of the respective countries. There's been misinformation recently about Russian President Vladimir Putin and an Orthodox Easter church service held over the weekend in Moscow. False claims have suggested that Putin did not attend this service and instead pre-recorded footage of him was edited into TV broadcasts. You might have seen claims on Twitter suggesting that Putin was rehearsing for this church service and that in actual fact in some of the shots on television you can't see the Russian president. Now, these claims have been spread to cast doubt on Putin's health as well as suggest that he has concerns for his security. However, if you look at independent news agency photos taken by the Associated Press, Reuters and Agence France-Presse, they all show Putin in attendance at this church mass. In all of these images, the Russian president is seen wearing the same dark blue suit, a white shirt and a dark purple tie. And that's an important point because some people had suggested that footage of Putin was taken from last year's church service in 2021. However, if you look again at independent news agency photos, you can see that at last year's service, Putin stood in the same position, was wearing a lighter red-coloured tie, and was also holding a different shaped candle ornament. So there is evidence the Russian president attended this church mass in Moscow over the weekend. And as the war continues to rumble on, Helena, we're likely to see more misleading and false claims like this, targeting not just Putin, but also the actions and behaviour as well of his Ukrainian counterpart, Volodymyr Zelenskyy.
This is Euronews Now. We're going to take a short break, but stay tuned for more news. You can also head to our website, euronews.com, for more updates on the war in Ukraine and our other top stories.